All right, in this next video, we're going to work on our login and then test our login. Okay, so if you remember right, when you go into here, you should see login. And once you click on the login page, it will take you to a login form and so forth, right? So let's refresh this page. And I think we got this one working with the baseball picture. So let's see if we got that baseball picture put into the right thing. It is not there. So this one, it is there. Oops, site cannot be reached. Why did it do that? Well, that's easy. If we come over here to our app, we just need to actually get it running. So we can go Flask Run, and then it says we have an error, which is good. Okay, so what is the error? It says SQL Alchemy object has no attribute integer. Okay, did you mean integer? Okay, so if we have an error, let's go fix it. So we actually come over here to our models, and we're gonna look on. Looks like maybe right here on team ID. So we scroll down to team ID here and just fix it so it's integer. Okay, and then come back up and run it again, and it looks like it's gonna run. Good. So we can come over. There it is. There's our picture. Looks good. But if we go here, we don't have a picture, right? So how do we fix it so we get our picture? Okay, so we can refresh that. There it is. We just go back and just say commit, right? So we come over here and we could say, hey, we want to commit, right? So we come over here and say, oh, this is what we didn't send up. We didn't send up this stadium picture. So I'm going to commit that, the models, all the init stuff. It's going to update the requirements also. So I'm going to say models. So we'll just say, maybe I'll spell it right, fourth models and pick. Just something that you kind of know what it is. So commit and push and send it up. All right. So while that's getting pushed up, that's good. Let's go and see what it is we actually need to do to get the login working. So in our routes, we just have a basic route. Hey, render 8 index.html. Well, we need to actually get in our routes, we need to actually add login stuff, right? So let's come over here in our routes and say, wait a second, we need Flask-Login, right? So we can use the Flask-Login stuff. So we'll say from Flask-Login import, and we have a whole bunch of stuff that we can use here. So let's go login user. Let's do log out user so we can actually log someone out. And let's do current user so we can get our if statement working in that thing. And then let's do login required. So if we don't want somebody to be on a page, it'll automatically log them out or send them to a different page. And then let's do login manager. Okay, so we have all those. Let's also import DB from app. So if we need to use it, we can. And then let's import our models, right? So from app.models import, and let's just import, we can import all, but we can also just do it user, team, and practice, something like that, okay? And for right now, I think that's pretty good. So let's come down and let's create a new one for login, okay? So in the last one over here in models, we added some this little extra code right here to get the login working, right? We need to do something very similar to that in order to get the get the stuff working over here too. So I'm just going to copy this in, and you can look at the code and put it in yourself. I'm just going to say, let's say login stuff needed. Okay, and let's just talk about it. Up here, this kind of instantiates the login manager. Down here, this method is used as from the login code to get that. It looks very similar to what we were doing on that other page. And then this right here, to really get it to work right, was found in this YouTube video. So it was a good YouTube video. So I'm referencing that. So, but let's get back to where we were. I'm going to put this route just a little bit lower and move this up to make sure the very, very top, kind of like that. Okay, so in our next route, probably want to build another route. Let's build one for login. So we're going to do all the login stuff. So let's start with something easy and just do the log out, right? So we'll just call this one log in, log out stuff. Okay. And down here is where we'll put some of that stuff. Okay. So the first thing we want to do is log out. So we'll go at app.route. Okay. So if someone wants to log out, right? So / if they go to log out, what do we want to do? Right. So we're going to also require that. So if someone goes to log out, it needs to be logged in before they can log out, right? So let's define log out. And let's just call the logout user, right? Because we've already have it. So we'll go log out user. We'll call that function, and it's actually a function as part of that that Flask-Login built-in libraries. So we'll just log the user out. It basically kills the session, and we'll send it back to home, right? So return redirect. Okay, which isn't there yet. URL 4, and let's go index. Okay, and both of these are kind of throwing weird reds. So let's go and add those, right? So we come up here to Flask and say, you know what, we need URL 4, and we also need redirect. All right, so it'll redirect, and we can use URL 4. Cool. So this is our log out. If anybody clicks log out, it'll actually kill the session and redirect them back to index. So let's go to our base here and let's set that. So we come down here where we have logout, and let's do 2 Jengas, okay? And inside that, let's go URL 4 and just say logout, like so. And finish it with parenthesis, just like that. So now when someone clicks it, they're going to click logout. It's going to send them to that logout, and it's going to kill it. Okay. Now that we have if the current user is anonymous or not, let's set that back up. Okay. So we'll come up here right below it. We'll leave it inside inside the UL. So under this unordered list, we'll have it right up here. Well, let's add that code back that we took out that said, if the current user is anonymous. Where do we get current user from? We got it from here, right here, current user, right? So if current user is anonymous, okay, what do we want to do? Okay, and then right here we'll just say else, right? And put this like so, and just say else, okay? Else, we're going to do this stuff. So I'm going to put a space there just so we can get a good... it kind of shows up a little bit. So if the current user, else, and then we come down and do all of this, and then we just end else. Okay. So it's this or this. Okay. And if I want this homepage to still be there, which by the way, this is also a homepage, right? So I don't have to necessarily call this homepage, but if I want this homepage to still be down here, I could just put it again here. And then it will not show it twice. It'll show this, or it'll add it here, okay? And then I have to end my else, and I'm going to end it right here, and I'm just going to say like so, and like so, and I'm just going to say and if, one word, okay? Come over here, and I like to back that up like so it kind of like lines up. Very nice. Everything's nice and pretty. And let's go ahead and I guess we can go ahead and run this and just see if it works. So let's click this, and we can just say login stuff. Okay. Click commit and push it up. And let's just see if our navigation is working. So we'll send that up. It does take a little while to push up. So I don't like to push it up too much. So I do like to do a lot of testing though. So that's kind of interesting to see a test. So if you want to see what process it is at the point, you can just go in and go to activity in your Heroku and just look at the build process. And it looks like it's just about done. It says it's been deployed. So if I open the app here, I can just refresh and it has an error. So if it has an error, what's the error, right? So I can come over here and I can click on the view log and it will come down here and say, let's see, what is the error? It succeeded. It looks like it's got this twice and it doesn't like that. Okay. This has been defined twice, this nav thing, right? So I should have tested this locally. And guess what? If I hit refresh here, it's going to throw it here locally a lot faster than pushing it up. So if I would have done it locally, I could have seen it. I could have fixed it before I had to push it up twice. So let's fix it real quick. I'm going to come back over here to my nav link. What it doesn't like is it doesn't like that I've got this one and this one defined. Okay, even though it only shows up if it's anonymous. So I'm just going to say, you know, something like home 1. Okay, so that probably won't work either. Maybe logged in or not logged in. So we'll just say that would probably work. Not log. Okay, and then this is just home, something like that. So if I come back over to the web, hit refresh, and now it works. Look at here's home, here's login. If I click login actually still doesn't work, but once I'm logged in, I should be able to see the log out down here. We know it's kind of working. So let's go back to our code and let's keep working on our regular login. So I've got log out working. Let's come down and get the other login stuff, right? So pretty easy. We want to make a form, right? So I'm going to make a new folder, a new file, call it forms.py. Okay, make sure it gets added. All right, and then in forms, I want to make that login form, right? So right off the bat, I want to have from Flask WTF, which is forms, import Flask form. Well, it's throwing all this red. Why is it throwing red? Because I need to have it installed. So pip install Flask WTF. And I like, it's not underscore, it's a dash, right? Click that, it's going to go out, it's going to find it, it's going to install it, it's installed. If I hit the up arrow like 3-4 times, I'll get to where I see pip freeze. I add it real quick to the pip freeze, and that's done. So if I come up here, hit enter a couple times, it kind of gets all, it finally figures it out. And then what do I need to add, right? So I need the login form. So I'm going to come down here, login form, something like that. And I'm going to make a class, and it's going to be login form, Flask form. And we're going to need a username. That's pretty easy. So username, and it's going to be a string. So string field, and let's give it a name of username for our label. And let's make it validate, right? So validators equals square brackets, data is required. So required, and that's a method, something like that. And it's got all these weird errors, right? Like what is string field, right? So we actually need to say from WT forms import, and let's just import string field. Okay. And we also need to say from WT forms dot validators import data required, right? So from the WT forms library, make sure we have to do the validators. Okay. So the next field, password, right? So password equals, and it's a password field. So we come over here, password field, and let's call it password. That's the name, that's the label we put on it. And validators equals square brackets data required. Okay, like so. All right, but it doesn't know what the password is, so I can just come up here, comma, password field. Okay, and that's going to be the way it is for pretty much all of them, right? And we want the submit too, so I guess we need a submit field. So come over here, we need a submit part of the form equals submit field, and let's just say sign in. Pretty cool. It's not going to work because we need the submit field, right? So we can come up here, comma, submit field. All right. So once we go back to our routes, now we need to be able to use the forms. So we come up here and we say from app.forms import login form. So now we can use the login form. Okay. So we couldn't use login form before. It's over here. It's sitting over here in forms. Now we got to tell it, hey, we want to use that one. So let's go back over to our routes, which were there, and let's actually bring in our first form, right? So we're going to go into our routes down here at the very bottom. We're going to make our login route. Okay. So we go at app.route and we're going to do login, right? And our login is going to have a form. And in order for our form to work, we have to use the get and post method. Get method is default, but if you're going to use post, you got to kind of say it both ways, right? So we're going to say comma method methods equals, and then let's go get, and then comma post. So we're going to use them both, okay? And we're going to define login. We're not actually passing anything into it. And then we can just use that current user thing like we did before. So we can say if current user dot is authenticated. And again, this library is, or this method or function, whatever you want to call it, is already part of the Flask-Login, right? What are we going to do if we do that? We're going to redirect the URL for, so where we want it to go. We're going to send it to the index file. Okay. Just like that. So if the current user, if we go to, someone says go to login page and they're already logged in, they don't need it. They don't need it, right? They don't need it. Okay. So that's the first thing we're checking. Then we're going to load the form. So we say form is equal to login form, like so. And then we can say, we're going to set the data from the form, right? So we're going to set form data to the variables, and then we're going to check the validation on it. So we're going to say form username is equal to form.username.data. So it's going to go out, find the form, get the username part. Again, so it's here. It's going to get whatever's in username, whatever's in password, and it's gonna validate it, right? So do the same thing again. Form password is equal to form.password.data. Okay. And then from there, so this is gonna like basically get form data. Okay, put them on variables. And then we're gonna say if form.validate on submit. So if it's valid, okay, we're going to say user equals, and then this is where we get our user alchemy, right? So we're going to say this capital U is that class, right? So we're going to say, hey, go to user, go to the class, and we're going to query it. So it's actually going out using SQL Alchemy. It's going to write its own query. We're going to filter by username. Where's username? Username is inside the database, right? So we called it username. That's the database field, is equal to form username. So filter by this form username here, where this form username is equal to this form username, right? And we want just the first record. So first, okay? And then we say same thing with password. We say password is equal to user, which is the dictionary that was returned out of this, user dot password. So this is a dictionary that's been returned back, and inside the dictionary, it looks like a Excel spreadsheet, right? It's got a bunch of rows and columns inside the dictionary, and we only got the first row. From the first row, if the username, give me the password for that column. So go to the password column, put that password into this password. Okay, so now we have password and we have the user. And then we say if user is none or password does not equal form password. Okay, so we've got form password here from the form. Okay, so we've checked to see if there's a user, and then if the password does not match, okay, what are we going to do? We're going to send a message, flash. So if that's a flash message, invalid username or password. Okay, and we're going to send them back to the login page. So return them, redirect URL for, and we're going to send them back to login. So just take them right back to the login page. Now I'm getting this little flash message here. The flash is a built-in function, but where is it built in from? It's actually built in to Flask, right? So I can come up here and say, hey, we're going to do flash messages, and it's a built-in library as part of Flask, and we'll show you how to do that. So it's gonna create a message, and then we can call this message anywhere we want if there's an error on any of our HTML pages. Okay, so if it's the form is valid, run the query. Check if the username and password. If it's not right, do this. If it is right, what do we want to do, right? So let's see. If it's right, we want to log in the user, right? So we're going to call login user. So login user, and we want to pass in the user. Okay, so we're passing in the whole dictionary into login user. Okay, and then we want to say session is permanent. So session dot permanent, okay, is equal to true. So we set the session, but it doesn't know what session is, right? So again, go up here and just say, hey, we want to make sure we use session. All right. So as part of Flask, we want to say, hey, we want to use the session library, the session objects in Flask to allow us to use session. And it's going to set the session. Okay. Session is equal to true, or permanent is equal to true, and we want to send them back to the index page. So return. So we want to, where are they going to go? We're going to redirect them to the URL for index page. Okay. If this isn't correct, so if the form isn't valid, what's going to happen if the form isn't valid? We're going to send them back to the login form. So, and I'm going to talk about that in just a second. So if the form isn't valid, we're going to say return, render the template, and this is important. We're going to go login.html. It's the actual template name, right? And we can give it a title. So we can actually set the title. So and I'll show you how we can pass in data. So we'll call it sign in. And we'll actually send in a variable called form. So form, and it's actually going to go and grab this login form and send it in. All right. So let's talk about this, just the logic behind this, right? So we've called login. The user isn't authenticated. Boom, it loads the form. Form gets down here. There is no username, no password in it because it's brand new. They just went to the login page. Nothing comes up here. This doesn't match. What's going to happen is going to come down here. It's going to render this template. It's going to go to find login.html. It's going to put it all together. It's going to pass in the form, and it's going to be ready for the person to do. So it's essentially a get. Okay? It's a read. Go to the login page. But when they click submit on the page, it redirects back to itself. It checks if they're authenticated. They're not. It sets the form data, checks if it's valid. If it is valid, it goes through the whole thing and redirects them back to the index page. So it does a loop every single time. You go to the login page and it loads it. Once it's loaded and you click submit, it goes back again using the post. So get is read, post is update. It goes in. Once it posts, it checks it all. Once the form has been posted, it checks everything. If it works, sends it to the index page. Okay, so let's go and see if we can get this to work. If I go into base, I can see where my login is, which is here. Okay, and I'm just going to copy this code, this little bit of Jenga code. I'm going to paste it in where login is, and I'm just going to say, you know what, go to login. All right, let's check it. Let's check it, right? So down here, I need to pip, or just Flask Run. I'm just going to Flask Run it. All right, and it looks like it's running. So I'm going to come down here, and I'm going to refresh. It doesn't look like we have any errors. And if I click login, boom, we have an error. A secret key is required because we're using forms. And I haven't really messed with the actual, I didn't actually make the login, the actual login page. If you come over here, there is no login.html. That will be the next error I get. So on routes, I said, if it's not due, go to this login page. So I need to make that login page. What I like to do for login pages is I like to just copy an existing page and paste it in, right? So I'm going to come over here, I'm going to paste it, and I'm going to call it login. So at least we have the login page, but we haven't really set up that form. Like we'll need to grab the form and put it here, okay? But we are having a minor config problem. So what I want to do is out here, the main folder, not in the app folder, but in the main folder, I want to say, create a new file, new Python file. I'm going to call it config.py, okay? And in this file, I want to create a secret key. So I'm going to make a new class, and I'm going to say class config, pass in an object, okay, whatever object is passed into, and I'm going to say secret key is equal to this is my secret, super secret key, a bunch of data, right? That's what it'll use to like make the super secret key. And then in my init, I need to include that in the actual application. So once I have that, I can come up here and just say from config import config. Notice this config is capital, and if I go into config, that's capital there. That's why that's capital, okay? So, but I need to instantiate that also. So I can come over here with like line 8 and say app.config is .from object and pass in config. That's pretty important. And that right there is going to say use, that's what the secret key stuff is that we're going to use inside the form, right? So let's come back over here and hit refresh. Now it's kind of working a little bit. So when I click on login, remember I just copied the index page. So the login page is now working. Okay. So it's two separate pages. Okay. Now I need to go in and actually make some changes to that. So let's look at the login page. So I'm going to come over here and we're going to look at the login page. I want to first do the flash message, right? So we're going to do a flash message, and it's just it goes out and grabs whatever messages are inside it, and you're going to include it on almost every page. So this is the code for it. I really like this code. I spent a little bit of time working on it to make it look just right. It has a little close button. The message pops here, and it says if there's a message, go out and get the flash messages, which is this function is part of the Flask library, and display the message here. Okay, a little bit of it. It'll have a bunch of messages. A whole bunch of messages could show up, right? So that's where the messages go. I like to keep it right below the header. Okay. And then we're going to add the form, right? So the very first thing we do is we're just going to come over here and we're going to say, hey, form. So form action. And when you do these forms, you don't actually put an action in because you're passing the form in, and the action is kind of already part of that object. So no validate, like so. And there's our form, right? So the very first part is a hidden tag. So Jenga form dot hidden dot tag. Okay. And let's just leave that there. And then we're going to add the submit and some like two other fields, right? So let's talk about each of those. So I want to probably put in a paragraph and then a second paragraph. So let's go like so, and then a third paragraph. So we'll have 3 P's. And in this one, we want the submit button. So form.submit, like so. All right. And then in this one, we want the label, right? So it'll be form.password.label, spell it right. So that's the label for the password. And I think I like to put the label and put the actual password so I don't have to remember it. So that's the label. And then I'm going to add a break so that goes, the label will go on top of the actual password. And then let's do the same thing. So form.password, and that is pretty much all you need, just like that. But if there's an error, you got to throw this little error message thing that will say, hey, let's throw an error right there. But for right now, that's exactly what you need. So I'm going to copy this and just paste it up here. And instead of password, we're going to say username. Okay. And copy that here. All right. So let's go take a look at what that looks like. All right. So I'm going to come down and I'm going to refresh this page. And it says, we don't know what you're talking about. No attribute called hidden. All right, so let's just double check that. Flask form. So this is going to happen quite a lot, where you come in and you're like, I don't understand what this is. And I really didn't understand, like, what are they talking about? No attribute hidden. Login form has one called hidden. So if I go back to my code and just kind of take a look at it, this is how I like to troubleshoot it. I'm going to come over to my login page. I'm going to look at it and I'm going to say, well, what is this? What is wrong with this? Right? So this is form.username.label. This is just form.username. So most likely, because there's only two, like, form attribute, this is most likely form underscore hidden tag. So I'm going to go back and look at my code and be like, you know what? That's probably right. So I probably made a mistake there and just labeled it wrong. So now let's go back and look at it and see what it looks like, right? So I'm going to come over here, and sure enough, that's all it was. So if I come here and look, let's actually look and see what this does. So if I go to Pepsi, and Pepsi, it's actually not Pepsi. I think it's admin in Pepsi. Click sign in. Now it says, I don't know what this is. I don't know what the MySQL DB module is, right? So that's different, but it looked like it worked. Okay. So if I come back, so my hidden form, that looks like it worked. Okay. What else is going on? I got all this extra stuff down here, right? So I'm just going to get rid of that, like so. And then I kind of like having these BRs because it kind of just makes it a little bit better. So I'm going to come like this. And I'm going to go back to my code and just kind of take a look at what that looks like. All right. So this looks like a pretty good field. And then I have one last change to make. I'm going to come up here and instead of Pepsi, I'm just going to say admin. All right. So we know our form works. We just know we don't have the MySQL DB installed, right? So I can come back down here. I'm going to quit the actual Flask Run. Again, pip install. And I want to say it's MySQL DB. So what I like to do is just come in and let it do the search for me, right? So I'm going to come over here, let this load up, click the little plus sign, and go MySQL DB. And at this point, I see it, right? So here, I don't always want this one, right? Sometimes if I see one that says Flask, that's always, in my mind, it's going to be better. So I'm going to pick the Flask MySQL DB, and most likely it's going to include all the right packages. So I'm just going to load that one. Okay, so it says it's successfully installed. I'm going to close that. I'm going to click OK. All right, so we're going to click OK, and I'm going to come over here and just look, and there's the Flask MySQL DB. Okay, and it also has the MySQL SQL client built in right there. So I'm going to click OK. And I'm going to come down here and remember, we always have to go back and pip freeze. It's going to add those two into the freeze requirements. And then I'm going to come back and look and say, well, let's just check it and see. So here's admin. Hit refresh. Site can't be reached because it has been refused, right? So I come back over here and I got a Flask Run, right? So Flask Run, that's what the problem was. It's like, it basically said, hey, you don't have this, right? It's not working. So I got to come back over and say, all right, let's do this. I'm going to refresh. All right, looks like it's not refresh. So I'm going to admin and I'm going to Pepsi, just like that. Sign in. All right, did that work? I don't know. Up here, let's look and see. It looked like it worked. So right here's home, schedule, teams and practice. Those shouldn't do anything, right? So home, schedule. Now if I click log out, it should kill the whole thing. We have log out working, right? So I'm going to click log out, killed the whole thing. You can tell it worked because I'm logged out right now. I'm not an authenticated user. Login is right here. So if I go back to login admin and Pepsi. All right, so I'm going to click sign in. And then, so I'm signed in. I'm back to the home page, and you can tell my navigation changed. All right, so here's my home page, and here's my logout teams. Okay, log out takes me back to the login page. So I know this video was long, but there's a lot covered, right? We started with the routes. We added our form to the login page. On our config, we added our secret config there. In our forms, we added our form, added our different types up here. In our index file, we didn't do a whole lot with the index file. I'm going to close that. Our login file, at the top, we could probably say maybe user management on that one. And then close that. Inside our routes, we did that whole route here for the login. We also have our logout route. Okay. And then, so routes is done. init's done. We have all our models are done. And then our base is pretty much working awesome. So at this point, I know it works. I'm going to commit it. I'm going to leave login stuff because that's really, look at how many have to get changed. Okay. I'm going to click commit, and then I'm going to push it up. Okay. So I'm just going to push that. Meanwhile, I'm going to go back to my Heroku and just watch it push up. Okay. So I'm going to go to activity, view the build process, and just kind of see and make sure that it's not hanging up on anything. Okay. Does all those different installs. That worked out pretty quick. Does all these installs, Flask-Login, all that, compresses everything. And now it's been deployed. So let's open it. All right, so it looks like that's working. I can click login. Looks like that's working. And I can say admin and Pepsi. Looks like that's working. All right. And I can come up here and let's just test log out. Looks like that's working. Okay.